trailer again. And then we're waiting on a couple other knick-knack stuff here, mainly clamps and couplers and stuff like that to get this all wrapped up. And then, so we'll get the cover put back on today. Then we will start getting going on the Powertune display. So I just wanted to go over the settings that I ended up having to do here for the trigger kit, which is different than what I've seen online. I do want to give a shout out to Vitali over at Boost Factory, who gave me a hand in getting this all set up. So what it actually ended up being was just a little bit of noise. We had to change the input filter to medium, and then we actually had to change our first trigger tooth to get it in line. Once we got it in line, everything's good, revved it up, and timing is locked. So super happy about that. Again, shout out to Vitali over at Boost Factory. Thanks so much, man. Well, I think we spoke too soon here. So under high revs, we're getting errors. So you can see here. So this bottom one down here represents the camshaft. And so the camshaft should be locked into a singular number here. So you can see it says 61 there. And as we rev it, it starts to lose signal. Now, we don't know whether it's the cam or the crank, but my guess is actually the crank, because remember that the cam is only there to tell the motor whether it's, you know, 180 degrees or not, or out or not. So remember, for every one crankshaft rotation, the camshaft has rotated twice, right? So it's basically there just to tell you, okay, yes, we're 180 degrees out, or we're at TDC, essentially is what it does. So if you look here at the RPMs, where we start to lose sync is right around 5,500 RPMs or so, give or take. And I've been kind of dealing with our scope data to see what we're finding here. So unfortunately, we haven't had much luck though. Okay, so here's a really rudimentary drawing right here on how the CAN bus wiring is supposed to be done. So for now, let's just ignore this side of it, and we're gonna look here. So when you're making a CAN bus network, you have to have a terminating resistor on each side, okay? So in this particular example, we're going to have the EMU black is going to be one side, so that's a 120 ohm, and that's built into the ECU. And then the Powertune display itself also has a 120 ohm, right? So, and then once you start adding CAN bus items, everything gets tapped in line to it, right? And that's how our CAN bus is going to be wired. So currently, the way it's wired now is we have the EMU black to the BTI. The BTI currently has a 120 ohm because there's nothing else in the system. Now, as you saw earlier, we were doing some configuration on the CAN IO box. And so the CAN IO box currently is connected directly to the Powertune display, and the CAN IO box itself also has a 120 ohm. So now that when we combine everything together, we have to delete the BTI's 120 ohm and the CAN IO box's 120 ohm, because now it's going to be connected in line as so. So now we've got everything configured for the CAN IO box and the display. So now what we're going to do is we are basically going to unplug the BTI display, CAN bus wise anyways, and we're going to hook up the Powertune to it. While we're doing that, because the way I tap the IO box right here, it's already in line. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the CAN IO box itself and remove the terminating resistors. Okay, so here's the CAN IO board's cover removed. Now this is an early one. This is what they call their V1 terminating CAN IO box. So this is an older one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to remove these two jumpers. So these two jumpers are the 120 ohm on this unit, and we're going to remove that. And what I like to do is I just kind of stick the jumpers back into it, just with only it on one pin. So if you look here, oops, trying to get some light in here for you guys. So the jumpers are not on, but they are just sitting there. So now we can just throw this case back on, and now we go over to the EMU side and disconnect the BTI gauge and hook up the Powertune display to the CAN bus. And so that's going to give us, ignoring this, that's going to give us this setup here. So we'll have the terminating resistor on the Powertune, and we'll have the terminating resistor on the EMU black, and the CAN IO will be hooked up. Now, currently the Powertune display and the CAN IO box are set up on 1 megabyte per second. So we just got to make sure that the EMU black is also on 1 megabyte per second. If the connection is not at 1 megabyte per second, we have to set them individually and then power everything off, turn it back on, and then at that point everything should communicate. So it looks like we're going to have a change of plans here. This right here is actually the BTI gauge, and this is actually a DT connector that they have pre-wired to add to the CAN bus system. So just like in that diagram before, we're going to change it up. So what's going to happen is the BTI and the EMU will have their terminating resistors, and so with the Powertune just kind of pinned in right here, what we're going to do is disable the 120 ohm on the Powertune side, and if that all works, then everything should be good to go. Okay, strange, ECU's not connecting. Might be something with this stupid harness again. We had some problems with it last time, as you guys may or may not remember. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that stupid harness is acting up again. So hopefully this is all working. Okay, so we have something here, but nothing on the Powertune display. All right, so I got the Powertune working here. So I thought the DT connector over there was for CAN bus output, but it's not. So BTI actually has their own little harness that goes right here. I had to remove the jumper off the BTI but it's all working now. We just got to figure out what to do about this connector here. So I'm gonna try to flip this over and see. So as you can see, the VTI is also reading lambda over here, and so we've got everything over here. Lambda is also reading on the Powertune, so it's all working. We just got to figure out this connector in the back here. Okay, so we got the harness ran through, and now we're going to look up a picture of the ECU Masters diagram. So CAN H is 12 and CAN L is 25. So let's go ahead and pop this connector out, and 12. So this is 13. So this is 12. That means that this is 25. So we're gonna pull these two out, or try to. Jesus Christ. Why is this routed this way? It's crazy because these what? Oh my God. Please. Jesus Christ. Okay, finally. All right, so we're not playing with that again. We're gonna double check our wire on the Powertune because I don't want to go back through that. So blue is CAN low. Blue is gonna go to pin 25. So we got blue here. Yeah, these guys have wires like wrapped into each other. This is like the wiring that I did when I first started. And so the reason why I started learning how to redo wire was because I would have to go back and undo my own wiring, and I realized how much of a complete shit show it was. And so that's why I started doing things differently, so people don't have to end up dealing with this type of crap. Okay, so if all goes well, we'll have a working Powertune display without the BTI gauge. So as you can see, the BTI gauge is, or not the BTI, excuse me, the Powertune is in fact working. We have the CAN IO working, and the reason why we know that is because one of the digital inputs is showing that it is in fact working. So we're good there. Okay, so fortunately enough on this car, we had enough space to pull the harness through and plug it all in so we can figure out what. So the only real connections that we need are going to be turn signals. We're gonna need the high beam indicator, the brake indicator. Now, this wire here for the charge light, we do need to have, but the Powertune display and most other displays can't fake spoof this signal, so we're probably just going to hardwire it with a resistor to kind of trick it to stay working. Now boost we don't need, RPM, speed, oil pressure, and coolant we don't need because all this stuff is going to come from the EMU. Now fuel level on the other hand, he's going to want, but I do know that his fuel level does not work. There's something going on with it, but this has to go into a specific output wire of the Powertune display. So we're going to at least find it, and then from there we'll just wire it in, and then they can figure it out and recalibrate it later. Okay, so we found the left turn signal here. We just basically followed the trace and it led us to this connector. And so I'm going to assume by looking at the trace here is going to be the right one. Okay, so now that's done. Looking at this, that tells me that this is it looks like it applies power for a second, and that's what causes it to obviously flash. So on this, we've got the, looks like green yellow and green black on this connector provides the turn signal power. Okay, following the high beam trace, it leads us to this wire here, which is red/green. So you can see that it's grounded out, and when I hit the high, it turns to power. So that's high beam. And so the final last one that we need is going to be the brake light wiring, and we're going to make note of the charge wiring. So this one here is the brake light. Let's see here, we're gonna unplug this really quick here. Okay, yep. So this one here is our brake light wiring, and we're gonna see if we can follow the trace. So it's going to be this one. The reason why we know it's this trace is because this wire is joined to the alternator wire. We'll follow this. So it looks like this pin right here is the brake light. So, okay, so this brake light is actually reversed. So meaning that if you have it down, it gets 12 volt. But if you pull it up, then the power goes away. And that wire is yellow-red, it seems like. So, all right, so we got turn signals, we got high beam, we've got the e-brake light, and now we're gonna try to find this alternator wiring. So we know it's not this trace, it shouldn't be this trace. Yeah, it's not this trace because it's shared with the brake light. So we just need to follow the opposing trace, which is this one. And it's going boop, 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 boop. Charge. So this wire right here is the charge wire. So with that being said, if I start it up, I think it actually delivers battery power. So as you can see, with it started up, it gets battery power. So that is the charge light there. Okay, so now that we have everything kind of figured out, what we're going to do is we're just going to start prepping these wires. So I'm going to cut, I've already cut some of the like electric tape stuff off. We're just going to cut all this off as well, just so we have enough meat and potatoes room. And what we're going to do is here in a second, once I get this done, I'm going to call the owner of the car to ask him how reversible does this need to be. So in the sense that if he ever wanted to go back to stock, how much does he want to do it? And so the reason why you want to ask that is because that if he really does not care and does not ever plan to go back to stock, it makes our lives easier because we can simply just cut the ends and then wire them into the CAN IO box. Now, if he wants to be able to retain it and be able to eventually go back to stock for whatever reason, and I'm going to tell you now, a lot of like the JDM guys, like the Supra, the Skyline type people, they for some reason have this idea that they want to be able to go back to stock. It's not always the case, but a lot of times it is. Even though like if they end up selling the car, I can tell you that they usually will sell the car as is, and they'll give the new owner all the stock stuff that went with it. So it's not super duper common that they want to really actually go back to stock. So like before, we're going to get interrupted while someone's calling us. Okay, so like before, just like anything else, we're gonna set up a spreadsheet here, and it'll have Powertune pin, and then it'll have gauge cluster pin, plus we'll have functionality and like the colors basically is what we're gonna do. So pretty cut and dry here. So CAN IO box Then we'll do the function, then R32 cluster wire, and then we'll do wire color. So now at this point, we're just gonna go run through it, pins 1, 2, etc. So the thing about the Powertune connector though, let me grab it here. So the Powertune connector actually doesn't even populate the whole thing. So it does in fact stop. So we're just gonna go through and, you know, actually what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make another column as well. I guess we don't really need a column here. So, cause we could do the IO box pin plus its respective color all in this slot here. So that's fine. And anyways, so the only one that we really need to pay attention to on the CAN IO box is going to be pin 7. And so the reason why pin 7 is important is, or excuse me, pin 4, channel 7. So the reason why this is important is because that pin 4 is for the fuel level. There's like a built-in filter. Yeah, see? So for fuel tank level, input use analog, input 7, features dampening. And so that's the only thing that we really need to worry about. Everything. Okay, so we got everything mapped out. There's like, I think 2 of the same colors on the rows, but the very bottom has like a couple pins that are the exact same color. As you can see, 2 pinks and 4 like light greens. Those we're going to take a look at to see, that's the wrong tab, to see what they are. So okay, 25, 26, 27, 28, which is the light green colors, are all center ground. And then 29 and 30, which there are 2 pinks, are the 5-volt wires. So those are all basically for additional sensors that we're not using. So we'll go ahead and we'll type that out, and then we should be good to go here. To make the CAN IO wiring a little bit more manageable, I just zip tied them into their groups, and their groups are basically in their respective rows. Nothing crazy here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start stripping wires, and we're just going to start tapping everything into the factory wiring over here while we document it all. So I don't know what the actual name of this connector is, but we're just going to call it the 10-pin white connector. And on the 10-pin white connector, we've got the turn signal wiring, and that is the green, black, and green yellow wires is our turn signal wiring. Okay, so we got our wire strip off the Powertune display. We've got everything kind of mapped out for the turn signals, high beam, and e-brake. So we're mainly dealing with pin the white connector and this black connector for now. So we got green, black, and green, yellow are the 2 that we're concerned with. Green, black is going to go to brown, black. So we're just gonna kind of jam this in here, back probe it for a sec, and then gray is going into green, yellow. Okay, so we've got that kind of jammed in there for now. And the multimeter's freaking out at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the keyboard for the Powertune. So this is a wireless keyboard here that we got. So we've got our digital inputs up. Okay. Strange. Okay, so we got nothing on digital inputs at the moment. Digital input 5 though, for some reason, is just staying on, which it shouldn't be. Okay, so earlier I had an issue with it not working. I got it working now. So take a look at digital input 4. That is our high beam. And what it ended up being was here in the instructions. So it was set at 1536 and it says standalone here. And I was assuming that it meant standalone ECU, but it actually means standalone as in the gauge cluster on its own. So you just hit disconnect here, change it to 1024, hit connect, and got it working. So now it's actually communicating. So something as simple as that. I wish they would kind of you know, expand on that a little bit, but it all makes sense now. So now we can go back and hook up our turn signals and test it again. Okay, turn signals are hooked up. So as you can see, digital input 2 and digital input 6 are working there. So now we're going to hook up. Let's see what we got left here. So the only one left is going to be our e-brake, which is D8 here. And the problem with D8 is that it is triggered when you drop the e-brake. So when the e-brake is pulled up, it's grounded, but when you drop it, it goes to 12. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but we're just going to give it a shot and see what we get. Well, unfortunately the laptop is dead. I got a good bit of it figured out except for the e-brake wire. So it's weird because when you drop the e-brake, you get 12 volt power, but if you pull it up, it goes to ground. But if you disconnect it altogether, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so I couldn't figure out what wires for the charge light last night. So we're going to figure that out today. I've got the charge light unplugged. I've got the alternator wiring down there unplugged, as you can see. So what we're after is a skinny wire. The skinny wire is the charge light, which is the exciter wire. And we just got to find where it's going into the gauge cluster so we can spoof it. So on the outside out there, it's white and red, but I don't recall there being a white and red. Oh, yep, there's a white and red wire. Boop, found it. So pin 1 on the black connector is the alternator excite wire. So we're gonna have to spoof that wire real quick. Ow. Okay, so we found out that this wire is our alternator excite wire. Now we've got to find basically what's going to be our key on 12 volt wire back here on the cluster. And we'll have to wire a resistor in place. So it looks like the yellow red wire here is our 12 volt power. So we're going to put a resistor in between these two. So we'll cut this in and then wire resistor, tap a resistor into here, and then we'll put them together, and then that should allow it to charge. Okay, so this is actually what we need here is a 470 ohm resistor. I don't know why it's a 470. I'm assuming it's like the resistance of the bulb itself is 470. I don't know. It's just what we've used, and that's what we've used forever, and it seems to work. So that's what we're gonna do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to jump the pins across, and I'm gonna test it really quick to make sure that it is charging. So right now it's 13.6, and I don't think it's actually charging. So we're gonna let it run for a little bit and see if it drops. Okay, though, we're right at 14. Oh, it is charging. You can see it flickering to 14. So I ended up, the one thing about gauge clusters that I always forget is that they have traces. So when the jumper was over here, it did have 12 volts, but the moment I unplugged it, it lost 12 volts, which kind of makes sense because this is probably powered by a trace on here. So I went ahead and I just removed it, and I just jumped into this one temporarily. This one does have power, but I don't know if it's like constant power or just only key on power, but I wanted to test it to be sure that it was in fact charging. So but yeah, here it still says 14, so we'll see. So I've got the headlights on, turn signals on, blower motor on, and it seems like it's holding. You can see that it's jumping around because the hazards are coming on and off, but I'm gonna let it run for another, oh, say 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and check to see if the voltage has dropped at all. All right, so I went to go pick up lunch, and I've been gone for probably about 10 minutes now, and it's, as you can see, voltage is still good. So now we know that it's for sure charging. I'll go ahead and I'll shut this off, and then we'll test this other wire to make sure that it only has 12 volts with the car running. Okay, looks like we're good, I think. Turn that off so it's less annoying here. Yep, so we've only got power with key on, so that's good to go there. All right, so this is the trunk of the Skyline, and we are looking for the fuel level, which I've already identified. So yellow here should be the actual level, then yellow blue is going to be the low level switch. So we're going to unplug this, and we're going to look for these two pins. The colors are green, blue, and looks like red, black, it looks like, but we're going to use our multimeter to find it anyways. Okay, so I've located the fuel level and fuel lamp. I actually don't know which is which here, but they're both on the white 10-pin connector. So the color is green, blue, and looks to be red, black. So we'll put that in our notes really quick here, and then I'll figure out which one's which. Okay, so I changed my wiring up a little bit. These two wires have power while you're cranking, so I went ahead and tapped that for the Powertune display, and then I gave us a little extra room here just to run the power to the CAN IO box. This other one is also key on power, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to use this one to do the pull-up, or the resistor, excuse me, for this particular wire for the alternator. So we're just gonna cut that loose there, and we'll put these two together with the resistor in between them. Okay, so I had to, now that I'm starting to wire everything in, I needed to kind of figure out where we're going to put the CAN IO box. I was able to wedge it into this little spot here. You'll see that there's like if you're doing this on your own vehicle, you'll see that there's like a little slot right here, and I was able to kind of wedge it in there. So I'm going to leave it a little loose like this. I've got the power, ground, and CAN bus wires running from the other side, and we're going to go ahead and start wiring everything in. So all the factory harness right here is just going to get kind of tucked along here, and the cluster will go over it. So I'm going to figure out the best way to route all this to see where everything's going to land, but that's essentially it. CAN bus wires are a tad bit too short, but it should be fine. Okay, so we got the wiring for the CAN bus done. The one weird thing is that this yellow black wire is ground, but historically yellow black usually means power, but I tested it here and it seems to be ground. So I'm not gonna make this a permanent connection just yet. I'm just gonna kind of tap it in for now, just to kind of see if that's correct. So obviously we have our power wires here. I'm gonna tap it in for the Powertune display, or the CAN IO box, and we should be good there for now. Okay, so now before moving forward, I'm just gonna make sure that the CAN IO box is working. So I'm gonna take this digital input here, hit it to 12 volts, and one of them should turn to 4, or yeah, so input 4 turns 0 to 1, telling me that the CAN IO box is working. So I just wanted to test it before moving forward, because CAN bus stuff can be real confusing and very frustrating. So we're just going to start wiring up our basic functions here, which is going to be the left-right turn signal and the high beam for now. That's all we're going to wire up. we're on the e-brake. We're going to try to do a 12-volt pull-up, and I'll get to that when we get there. And then we also have to add another pull-up for the fuel level. So far the only thing that's been done is power ground, CAN bus, and the power wire for alternator. That's all been done. So in my lap here, I've got the 240 ohm resistor, and then this one's a 1.5k ohm resistor. So this one is for fuel level. We're going to build a pull-up for the fuel level. This one we're going to try to do a pull-up for the e-brake, and I don't know if this is going to work or not, so we're going to test these. I'm going to go ahead and just wire this one in because I know for a fact that's what Powertune tells you to do. So I'll go ahead and I'll do this one, and then on this one, like I said, I'm going to test it and we'll find out if it's going to work or not. Okay, so we've got some type of functionality here. This is 12 volt right here. This is the 1.5K resistor, and then on this side is the digital input 8 and the e-brake. And so if the e-brake is up, you can see that it says 0, but if I drop the e-brake, it goes to 1. So it has some type of functionality. Is it perfect? No, definitely not. So what I'm going to try to do before I move forward is I'm going to add a third dash here, and what we're going to do is we're going to see I'll have to do this off camera because I need to kind of save some battery power here, but what I'm going to try to do is see if we can get this to invert on a logo and see. So let me test this, and then I will get back to you guys here shortly. Okay, so we should be able to get on tying this up here. So check this out. There's the e-brake. So as you can see, the e-brake is up, and you can see that the logo is illuminated. Drop it down and it's off, up. So got it working, so that's going to be totally fine. We're going to go ahead and tie that up and then call that good. Okay, so now we are going to connect to the Powertune display again to transfer some files, and this is Win SCP, and the username should be root. Okay, so here it is. Here's the Powertune display. So we're going to go here to logo. From here, we're going to go to the desktop, wherever it is at. Users. And we're going to upload. Okay. Then we're gonna go back one. Okay, so a minute ago I got everything selected, but it didn't cross over, and the reason is, now that I know, is that we actually have to move them. So I'm gonna see if we can just duplicate, I think. Nah, we're not gonna do that. So what I'm gonna do is select all this, see if there's an easy way to copy and paste. Bear with me, guys. I do not do this at all. Edit, download, duplicate. Let's move. Okay, so there's not an easy way of moving it. So we'll duplicate this. Okay, maybe not. So we're just gonna delete this, I think, altogether. And we're gonna go up one. User dashboard. Text file. We're gonna upload that. Boop. And then we'll go to the other one and do the same thing. Cam girl. Boop boop. Hit F5. That'll transfer over, and we'll close that out. Yes. And now, if that goes well, it should, yep. Okay, so now that's in, and I'm going to drop the Powertune display. We're going to load up our dash. If I can ever not, there we go. Strange, and it doesn't load. Why is that? Clear, clear. Close. Import, load. All right, it's not working. Let's try a different dash here, green dash load. Okay, so definitely isn't working. Import, load. Okay, so blue dash is working. Background. None. 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 Close. Okay, so now that is working. So we're going to clear this all together. Now this whole thing is off. And we're going to load up the Street Fighter Dash and see what happens. There we go. Remove gauge. Remove gauge. Close. Save. Okay, so there it is. This is everything copied over, so hopefully it works like it's supposed to. Okay, I hope I got this right because the instructions are very unclear. So there's two boot videos. And one's under source and the other one is under logo. So I think I probably copied that in the wrong spot there. So hopefully this is right. So I'm gonna end this.